Hey everybody, thanks for joining or thanks for watching the video later. Happy to be here. Quickly, I'm Kevin McTigue, professor at Kellogg. I teach in our core marketing strategy program, our MBA program, our international executive MBAs, and our advertising class. Professor Rucker.
Yeah, so it's a pleasure to join all of you today. Been at Kellogg since 2005, so my focus is advertising strategy. So written a textbook on advertising strategy, written a textbook with Kevin on the Creative Brief Blueprint. But really, my passion lies in understanding how we use the subject of marketing to build better brands and to position brands for growth. And that's what we're really excited about this program today is that's what we've dedicated some time to really answering some of these really critical issues at the forefront of our minds. And I think Kevin can walk you through some of those things we've been playing with.
Yeah, we can just talk about the origins of why this program exists, because this is the first year we're doing it. And you guys know this, the kind of the landscape is changing so rapidly, right? The landscape's changing rapidly. Both Derek and I work with a ton of companies on the outside. And it's former students and alums and across the board. And we seem to be, we started to hear some of the same questions over and over again. And some of these questions, I don't think were being addressed in some of the existing exec ed offerings we had. And so based on hearing all these things kind of over and over again, we said, you know what, let's start from the ground up. Let's just build an exec ed that's completely focused on these questions, right? And so the questions we're getting are like, listen, Professor, our customers are way different. This is B2B, this is healthcare, this is B2C, but it's changing all the time. How do I keep a good pulse on my changing customer? One of the most kind of common questions we get is how do I prioritize, right? It's the old adage, I mean, I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And so how do I figure out like where to focus not only like my time and my energy, but like my organization's time and energy to have the greatest impact? A very tactical question that we're getting all the time now is this idea of performance versus brand marketing. I mean, you guys may have seen this in the news with the Nike CEO shift, and a lot of people are talking about how maybe that is a mix up between somebody overweighting performance versus brand. So we're going to get into the weeds of that and how do we make those decisions.
And Kevin, that's
Yeah,
just to give them the inside baseball. Like
yeah.
this is like Kevin and I have spent now, I don't know, countless nights discussing how do you solve this puzzle. And what
Mhm.
we keep getting played back to us is brands that basically dump their brand marketing to focus on performance, and then they're 6 months down that path, and they're like, I am losing. And so we've been kind of with that in mind, building ways to solve that,
Yeah.
to understand when you do each.
And the other problem we run into with this is that sometimes organizations will split these two disciplines. And then you've got the performance team saying, like, look, I can prove everything I'm doing is working. And then the brand folks are like, how do I make a business case for this? Right. And so I think we have to talk about how do you kind of make a business case? How do you show the linkage between those two things? And then I was gonna say, you're gonna tackle this idea of performance driven, like kind of at like what height do I start to message and talk about my benefits? Um, we're gonna talk about Gen AI. You kind of have to, right? And this is something that we talk about a lot at school. Um, but I think what we want to do with this class is, I don't know about you guys, but I've been to a handful of these, like Gen AI is going to change the world and we're all going to be run. Like, let's talk about like for real, next 12 to 18 months, like where can we apply this practically right now? So this is not going to be like smoke and mystifying and all that stuff. It's just like practically, where do we see use cases right now? And so we're going to get to play around with that. But the kind of core question that's driving all of this is the one we get all the time is like, help me figure out how to grow, right? Help me figure out how to grow. And that is the question that was the impetus for this entire course. And so, Professor?
Yeah, and when we think about marketing at Kellogg, we've been studying it here for a long time, and a big function of marketing is to both create and communicate value for brands. Like that's why we exist. When the CFO says, why do I need marketing? That's our answer. It's like, because we are your device to both create and communicate value. Creating and communicating value leads to growth. And so we built the program, and I'll talk about the first session I teach is really understanding these paths to growth. So we first confront, where do you grow? Where Kevin and I see a lot of mistakes made is people don't think about growth the right way, and so they target the wrong areas. They try to grow against something we'll familiarize those who attend with as the popular kid. It's like everyone wants to grow with them. And it's like, right. And by everyone trying to grow with the popular kid, you miss out on big opportunities. And these smaller brands all of a sudden gain momentum because they've figured it out.
Yeah.
We talk about, who are they? So really starting to uncover our consumer, thinking about these targets, thinking about them from a strategic lens. Kevin and I both consider ourselves strategists. So while we will dabble in the creative arts, we're working on a book on that right now, we are fundamentally understanding, how do we pick out things that make sense, that make business sense. We will make you make a business case in one of our exercises so that you can really see that marketing isn't just fluff. I know a lot of people on the call know that to be the case, but you probably also know that you have to make that case. So we're going to help you doing that. Part of my passion, and you'll see that Kevin and I, like, we're fortunate, we share a lot in common, but we also have some specialization. So I'm an academic by training. Kevin is actually an alum of our program, and then has been on both brand and agency side, so brings a lot of practical experience to it. But I'll talk a lot about consumer psychology. And so one of that is addressing like why they're not buying. And it blows my mind how many brands fail to ask that question, especially when you see, and Kevin and I will go through with you, when you see all the brands that ask the question and they attack it the right way, and then of no surprise to either of us, they grow. And so we'll talk about identifying those barriers. And then one of Kevin's specialties, understanding when and how we connect. I mean, I think we've seen just an explosion of media, and Kevin, you can speak to that, but an explosion of media each year, and we need more guidance and we need more governance. And Kevin's going to speak to how we accomplish that.
Yeah. I mean, even when we're automating it, which we frequently are, we'll use the CDP and we'll automate a lot of it, but it still doesn't kind of get us off the hook for being strategic. And that's what we run into sometimes. So just going like a level deeper, I thought like if I was going to take the class, I'd want to like, well, what exactly are you going to talk about, right? And so what I wanted to do is just kind of give you a sense of these are the different specific classes that we're going to take, that you're going to take, right? And so where do you grow, right? You can kind of see that it's just organized around these key questions for growth, right? So the first one, what Derek was talking about is that there's a difference between saying like, I want to grow 5%. You're like, awesome. Yeah, we all want to grow 5%, 20%. And then just kind of like, just going out just widely and trying to do that versus figuring out like, no, where is the specific source I'm going to grow from? Because if you can do that, what you find is that that allows you to kind of line up, well, if it's this path, it's probably these people, and the reason they're not buying today is this, and so my action should be this. And so it's very like logically, it's kind of logically pathed. It's not just like, let's just go do best practices and hope for growth. Like that's what we're fighting against. We're trying to get down to like a more logic-driven, systematic approach to finding out where we're going to grow. It's actually more effective, and it is a million times easier to explain to senior management what you're doing. Under who are they? So classically, marketing programs talk about segmentation and targeting. We still have to have focus, right? Now, in the modern world, like I can target a million different segments, like with kind of auto-optimized creative that's even like, some people are playing with this now that it's Gen AI created. It kind of doesn't get us off the hook for still having focus on who are the people that are most likely to respond to us. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about there are things that we can do that are variable, like an email campaign or some advertising. It can change by the segment. There's a lot of stuff that we still do as organizations that's not variable and for which we have to figure out who it is. And so what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to talk about what does targeting look like in a modern world? Like what's different than 10 years ago, and then what's the same as 10 years ago that you really got to focus on. And then Derek is being modest. He's one of the more famous consumer psychologists in the country, in the world. And so he's going to get into generating rich consumer insights that we can leverage for growth. getting into that, why are they not buying? This is where we're really tapping into a lot of his research background in terms of getting into like behavioral science. Like, what are the barriers that you're facing? Like, if you've outlined this path, now it's time for us to figure out what are the most important barriers or impediments that I need to overcome in order to get these people to act as they wish they would, right? And so that's where we're going to leverage some of the science to figure out, like, okay, how do I figure that out? And then how do I overcome those barriers, right? And with that, we get into messaging strategy. Like, some messages are going to work better for some audiences, right? And so how do we figure out what works best? And then finally, we get into kind of like the tactics of it. When and how do we connect? So I'm going to talk about practical journey mapping. This is one of the more popular subjects that we talk about here. It is, most of us, I think, are familiar with the idea of journey maps. If you've done a lot of them, you're probably familiar that they take too long and cost too much. So while the value's there, the practicality isn't often there. So what we're going to do in this class is we'll talk about how do I create something that's useful, but also can be done in a practical amount of time with research I already have. Then we'll get into that brand versus performance marketing, and how do you measure effectiveness in both, and what are kind of the key watchouts, right? As you know, Derek, you were alluding to before, like, we've seen this example where company has brand and performance, and they see the results from performance, and so they throw all the money over there, and then they're like surprised 6 months later when like performance isn't working as well because they never thought about the linkage, right? So I think that's going to be a good one. And then the last thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about this Gen AI in a practical sense. And so I'm going to talk about like some of the big marketing use cases that we've got right now for Gen AI that are like real. You can use them right now. And then we're also going to use it for talking about innovation. And I think this is a really cool area to use it. If you've done a lot of like innovation brainstorms in your past and kind of gone through this whole like feasibility analysis, I think there's kind of a really nice use case for Gen AI in that space. Any other builds on this slide, Derek, before we move on?
No, I think you covered it really well. I'm excited to talk about the next slide, so I'm ready to move.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so I guess so, both Kevin and I love teaching, and I think one of the things that is exciting to me, so topics matter. So we pick topics that not only are important and reflect what we're seeing and hearing from the marketplace, but it's also our approach. And so what I love is you get to work with us through cases that we've written. So everything in our program is designed by us, implemented by us. And so, one of the ones I'm passionate to share about is Modelo. So Modelo beer, if you haven't been paying attention, they've had a meteoric rise, now becoming the number one beer in America, imported beer. And the other thing, or just number one beer in America. And that was actually done by one of our alums, Ann Legan. And so Ann and I wrote a case together, and we're going to walk you through like how the brand figured it all out. How did they figure out being from what was a fast, small growing brand to the number one beer? There is an amazing growth journey there that reflects Kellogg principles and reflects Kellogg thinking. I also will share with you, and then maybe I'll let Kevin comment on a couple of his cases that he's excited about. But Avocados from Mexico. If you see Avocados from Mexico, they are a marketing organization who are around and who serve the primary purpose of building consumers' demand for avocados. So they are themselves a US organization, a US entity. So they're not from Mexico. And they actually don't sell avocados, they just market them. We will see how they have massively grown that brand. Avocados from Mexico now sits at 85% market share. And not just that, they've grown category usage. So what's really fun is this is a dynamic, interactive set of lectures where we work through together cases.
Yeah.
Maybe Kevin, if you'd like to comment one or two.
You know, it's funny, because we do use cases from all over the world. And I just noticed when you said it that, yeah, we actually did write all these cases. But they're some of our favorite cases. That's probably why. And a lot of the reason that we even write a case is because it's driven by what's happening in the market today. And you're like, there's nothing out there that kind of allows me to talk about this in the way I want to. And so that's why we wrote these cases. And so Spot Hero is kind of a good example of it's a little B2C, a little B2B, but it's all about like data-driven targeting. Airbnb is where we get into performance versus brand. Mercedes is a brand that I worked with, and so we're going to kind of get into like a real issue that they faced and how they kind of solved it. So those are just kind of like great cases. One of the things we're really excited about is that we wanted to add something new to this program that we hadn't done before. And so right now we're developing this new interactive case. And so what's going to happen is when you get there, you're going to be put into a team. Your team will be given a set of information on day one and be asked to make marketing choices with a budget. And you will input all your choices, as will all the other teams. Now, this will be a live competitive environment in which their choices are going to impact your choices. And so every day we'll reveal the results of how the different teams did. And then you will have a chance to go back and revise your inputs and make different decisions strategically. And the idea is that as we go through the program, you're going to be understanding more about the decisions you need to make to guarantee success for your business in any given market. And so that case, I do see in the Q&A, there's a little like, is it all B2B or B2C? There's B2B and B2C in that interactive case. Everything we talk about will be applicable to B2B. And because we'll be together all day, we're happy to chat through any of the nuances of how it might be different for your specific situation. But very excited about our multi-day interactive simulation and having that like kind of live competition with real inputs.
And I think just the thing, I'm also really excited for this. It was something that because we have a very compressed venue, we can make it so that we can turn around a work product. So Miami will, of course, be an enjoyable um, location, but in the evening you will have work. And the thing is, Kevin and I will stick around for that too. So you'll actually be able to interact with us. So we will
Yep.
be visiting you. The idea is we want to make sure that you don't just learn in the sessions the principles and the ideas, but you apply them in a real case. And the idea is if you can apply them in a real case in an environment that you know less about, I don't want to spoil what the case is, but we're pretty confident it's not going to be the brand or product any of you have. Then it should be all the easier to now go back and do the same thing with your real brands for which you have more knowledge.
Perfect. Oh, look at this. And this is part of our Q&A too, is who should attend this. Um, because growth is such a broad topic, um, it's not limited to like one kind of like title within an organization, right? It's basically, it could be folks, it could obviously be marketing people that are doing this. It can be, we've seen a lot of general managers or people that are just literally in charge of revenue, like growing, like how do I grow? And so even if you came from a sales background, I still think that the principles we're going to talk about are going to be applicable. We've got product managers, emerging leaders. I would say you should come to this program if this is something that you're thinking about, if this is something you're tasked with, if you're going to take this seriously. Like this is not, this is all day work, right? And then evening work. It is a boot camp. It is real work. And so I guess what we would say, who shouldn't register is someone that just thinks it's going to be a couple of days at the pool and they get to put something on their LinkedIn. It's not that.
No, or I would
Work.
think, yeah, I'd say, or genuinely like you're just not worried about using market as a growth vehicle. Like there is a fundamental understanding of like that's what it's about. And so if you feel like no, I know that all, it's like, all right, well, if if everything we described to you, you feel like you're killing it, you're welcome to reach out to either of us. We'll give you our contact information. We can direct you to other sources. But I think what you'll find is, especially through like what I'm excited about is this is a unique program because you get Kevin and I all day, every day. And so you get to form closer relationships with specific faculty members that you may not in certain types of programs you would take elsewhere. And so that's what I'm excited about. And I think for the right person, you're not only going to get a lot in this short window, but ideally we'll be writing a case with you in the future.
Yeah. It is more immersive than most of the programs we do because we're all kind of in it together, right? So, Derek, you want to talk a little about Miami?
Yeah, I mean, so we have we have a campus set up in Miami. So it's stationed at a hotel. You can see a picture there, but it's a great campus space. So we've got all the bells and whistles of a normal classroom, and then we have the Miami experience. So we have catered lunches. There will be time for a dinner. We will encourage you to actually potentially work with your team, have dinners, get to know those, get to know us. But it's just especially if you're looking at December 9th, 12th, depending on where you're coming from, I can tell you, Kevin and I are very excited to be there during that time.
Yeah.
But I want to say it's got the same intellectual stimulation that we bring to any program, but we have a fun environment for which it takes place too.
Yeah, it's not always great to be in Evanston in December. All right. We're gonna do like all the Q&A here in 1 second, but I'm gonna let Joan talk a little bit about the administrative stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I just want to reference Alan's question. I will be sending the video recording of this when it finishes, so I will send it to your email address that you dropped in the chat. So look out for that. So if you all want to learn more about the program, please click on the first link on the slide. This has so much information on what to expect, all the 411 information, so please visit that. You can also sign up for an advising session with Nicole Schneider, and please feel free to drop a question off to Derek and Kevin. Their email addresses are listed on the slide. And any more Q&A questions? We have like a couple more minutes left, 9 minutes. So please drop them more in the chat. But yeah, I'll get back to you, Kevin and Derek.
Perfect. Thank you. Will this course be offered at additional times in 2025? That's a good question. I would assume so, but we have not planned that yet. And so we do not know that answer at this time, like where we'll be. And so one of the things, if you've seen our exec ed before, sometimes they run like 6 days. Okay. And so what we're trying to do with this one is try to figure out, is there a way we can like, not everyone can take that much time off, right? But both from family and work. And so that's why it's compact. That's why it's like a Monday afternoon to a Thursday midday. So it's kind of like really kind of hardcore, just like, let's get in there, let's do it. Let's not waste any time. Awesome.
Yeah, I think this is right now, this is our first iteration. Like we hope to offer it again, but we don't know. So this is the guaranteed, we know it's happening time. And I see it, we have some alums in the chat. That's always great to have. One of the things we love about Kellogg is there is lifelong learning here. You form connections. So for those of you who have never taken a Kellogg program before, like this is also an opportunity where you form collaborations and connections that really exist long after the program is done. And both Kevin and I had the good fortune of hearing from alums for the program. That's part of the reason we have so many cases that are written with alums, that we were able to reach out to them and they connect and so on. So it is like a initial means to get to know Kellogg better as well on a topic that I think is super important. And for someone who's taken A9, I'm sure you got some great learning principles then, and we'd be happy to give you some new stuff.
Here's a great Q&A, Derek. What are you most excited about to teach in this program?
Wow. I can go first. I mean, I'm going to steal some thunder because I suspect we're highly likely to align, but it is this exercise because it's something that we've been putting a lot of time into. And it's one where, there's a lot of times where you teach a case, and teaching a case is fun. It's exciting because you see answers in ways you didn't think. But the fact we're doing this live simulation means you have to react after you get data. And so I don't want to spoil too much for you, but I'm excited to see both the strategies you plot and the courses you take, and then how you adapt to maybe some unexpected things in the road. So I guess that's what I'm most excited about. Again, that's the part Kevin and I are all in on that together. So I think that'll be the most interesting. But again, I'm excited to teach about avocados from Mexico, about Modelo, about the consumer, and kind of just sharing that knowledge with you. There's just a lot of good stuff. I think our menu is really all killer, no filler.
It's funny. Yeah, I was thinking about I know the stuff that I'm teaching. It's some of the newer stuff that I've developed, and so I guess that's what I'm excited about. It's almost all new stuff that we've developed over the past 3 years, right? And so that's kind of fun for us. It's not, it is. We know it's awesome because we've taught it before, and like it's worked great, but it's also fairly new to us, so it's still really exciting to teach this material.
Maybe I see one too, Kevin. I'll let you kick this one too.
Hmm.
In my opinion, I think we'll converge, but someone says, do I have to be in a marketing job to sign up for the program?
I don't think so, right? I mean, the way Kellogg historically teaches marketing fairly broadly as that it impacts every single part of the organization. The way I talk about it, I just kicked off week 1 last week of the quarter, and I opened my marketing class by saying that marketing is about getting people to choose us, right? Everything that we do is I need someone to choose my offering over the competition's. And so that's the basis of it. And if that's how we're talking about marketing, it's kind of hard for people to get out of that, right? If you're an organization and part of your job is not getting people to choose you, I mean, that is the big kind of like big picture we're looking at here. What is the value of this class to an M&A integration process? That would be interesting. I mean, I'm trying to think of like an M&A integration process. If I was, I mean, what it might do, and this could be tangential, but you could start to see where firms are showing really good signs of health. Like what makes a firm healthy from a marketing standpoint, from a strategy standpoint. And so you'd kind of see like two levels down of like, are the bones of what they're doing, does that make sense? Does it seem like they're going after something smart that would be sustainably, that should be able to be sustainably grown?
I like this. I see also, I know we're starting to run low on time, but we'll of course cover B2B marketing elements. So maybe I'll get my answer to that and let Kevin turn over to it.
Go ahead.
There are examples that we give that certainly cross into or are the B2B space. So, I've written a book on advertising strategy. I've written a book with Kevin. Like we are, for lack of a better word, agnostic on what the product or the service is, right? Like we ask the same strategic questions. So certainly some of our cases are CPG, you can see that, but we've worked with participants in other programs to help them see the applicability to B2B. I have never encountered a situation where people didn't see the applicability. You were dealing with customers who you still have to have insights about.
Yeah.
And there's certainly cases and examples we use in that space. So I wouldn't say like we do have a B2B program where that zeroes in purely on like everything is B2B, every case. And so I'm teaching that. But I bring examples from that here. So you would get the way I'll say it, and I'll let Kevin react, is I think you'll get a lens that is applicable. And I think we would work with you if you needed some help figuring out the connections, but most don't need help with that. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add to that.
No, I think it's usually, I mean, 'cause if you think about who our participants are in a lot of our other programs, Derek, a lot of times they are B2B, right? And we've never gotten feedback that like, oh, this wasn't applicable because you used a Modelo example, right? Because the bones of what we're talking about, even if we dress it up with Airbnb or Modelo or whatever it is, the reason that we're talking about these examples is not that we think you're going to go into this industry or you are in this industry, is that it really allows us to highlight important lessons in an easy to understand way. So yeah, we'll have B2B examples, and I'm really not worried that people are not going to find it applicable. I mean, we have to call out B2B at several different points because it's a slightly different process in terms of like, it's a longer lead time. There's frequently more decision makers and varied decision makers. But after that, it does go back kind of to core principles.
Maybe one more, I'll give my perspective first again. And again, by the way, you see our emails up there. Do not hesitate to email us directly if you have questions that aren't answered. But one of the questions is, would you recommend for new to marketing or those with at least some experience in marketing before attending? So I think like if you're looking for the most fundamental marketing course, like tell me what a target is, what an insight is. Like if you don't have no knowledge, you might find the course very fast paced for you because we're going to dive deep quickly. That said, I think that, for people who have some expertise or even a lot, you're going to find a lot of new knowledge. And so I wouldn't rule it out. Like if you're excited or you find, like we've had people I teach an advanced marketing course for Kellogg, and we have brought in people who are new to the function, but are very quick studies and learners. They catch up quickly. But I would say, this isn't 101. Like we're just going to sit in the basics. Like we are at the cutting edge and we are going to discuss ideas, but we'll do them in a richer level. So like when I talk about why consumers don't buy, I'm going to get into insight. And so if you have no knowledge of insight, I'm going to educate you there, but it will move pretty fast. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to add to that.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair. It certainly isn't an intro to marketing class. But again, I'm not sure if we'd lose anybody, I think, but Manuel, thank you for the shout out. Love it. Happy to see you again, hopefully. Certain industries we look for in registrants? No, we love diversity of industries. Honestly, we love diversity of backgrounds, industries, because it makes the questions more interesting that we get in class, the discussions more interesting, all of that. So wonderful. So I think we've answered all of our Q&As.
And we're at time. So this is a coordinated session.
We end on time.
Yeah, great. If there are other questions, again, feel free to reach out to Kevin or I.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time today.
Yep. Thank you so much.